The next generation of gaming is just around the corner. Better specs, better performance, and an overall better gaming experience for PlayStation and Xbox fans. Most current-gen games will be receiving an upgrade to the next-gen consoles for free, one of them being Doom Eternal. Meaning, if you own Doom Eternal on PS4, you'll get it for PS5 absolutely free. But with this upgrade, players might find that the game will not only look better, but notice some unusual changes that can both benefit them, but also some disadvantages along the way. Picture this. You first started playing Doom Eternal on the PS4 or Xbox One, and you had a blast. You fell in love with it and started to 100% the game. All Slayer gates, all collectibles, even all the achievements too. Then you get the next gen release and notice certain enemies kill you a lot quicker, and your movement is a lot quicker too. It's the same game, but it gives you a different experience. What gives? Well, thanks to the id Tech engine, FPS has a greater influence on gameplay. Doom Eternal was made for 60 FPS, but as the FPS gets higher, then the engine starts to get a little wonky. The meat hook is a good example of how FPS influences the gameplay. Due to current gen being locked at 60 FPS, you get a bit of a speed boost from a meat hook swing. But if the FPS were doubled, so will your speed. As you meat hook swing, your FPS increases as you're traveling. Even when next gen will be locked at 120 FPS, your speed will be doubled the normal amount you could pull off on current gen. So don't be surprised if you start to notice your Slayer zooming around levels at Mach 1 after flinging off an imp. If you want to know a little more about meat hooking, especially for console, I have a guide for it if you'd like to check it out. Link is in the description. The dash ability also can be influenced by FPS. The Revenant is a special demon to play in battle mode. You have 2 dashes at your disposal, but can be used differently. In the air, dashing is the same if you were to have 60 FPS or 400 FPS. The only way FPS can influence your dash is if you're on the ground as you dash. The Revenant can dash much further and could even dash across the training room with just one use. The Slayer also receives a bit of a boost for dashing on the ground. Allstin made a video comparing dashes with 60 FPS and higher FPS, and has shown to prove it can influence even the Slayer himself. I recommend you check it out if you want to see more about it. Link will be in the description down below. Even though the Slayer has a slight increase of distance from dashing, the Revenant, however, can fly across the room, escaping from a Slayer's sight. Of course, those are the advantages of FPS. While dashing as a Slayer may not be too much, the meat hook, however, is a big change, but so much fun to do if you know how to control your swing at high speeds. Now, on to the bad stuff that I wouldn't say balances everything out from the advantages, but is sometimes frustrating to deal with due to the engine. As I mentioned before, the id Tech engine was made to run at 60 FPS for everything to be balanced, but as the FPS increases, so does the wonky nature of Doom. Certain demons will start to stand on objects they shouldn't be on. Hell Knights are the most common demons that show it. Especially if they spawn on a platform, slowly lowering itself, they could get stuck on a wall next to them and stay there like a demonic mountain goat would. Fighting against the Mancubus and Pain Elemental can be much harder, feeling as if they're using aimbots when firing directly at the player. While there are some advantages to having a higher FPS, there are some disadvantages. Some small, some that can make normal single-player run a lot more brutal, which is why I believe if you upgrade to next gen, you'll have a much different experience for Doom Eternal. And it's not that you can fix these FPS issues so easily. It's a part of the id Tech engine, just like b-hopping. No matter what, you can't take it out. It's part of the engine. Now, some of you may have noticed that next-gen titles can have FPS that goes up to 120 FPS, meaning most games won't be at 120, but instead 60 FPS. So if you're wondering, will next-gen Doom Eternal run at a stable 120 FPS? I'd imagine that it will, because let's face it, Doom Eternal is so well optimized that even putting everything at low still looks good and runs incredibly well. I mean, look at how some of the lights reflect off of the weapons. Even if you were to turn reflections off, that same reflection will still be there. But otherwise, I do believe it will be able to hit 120 FPS easily while still looking great. But that's what I think next-gen Doom Eternal will be. Higher FPS, pretty graphics, and aimbotting demons. Now tell me, are you planning on getting Doom Eternal for next-gen? Let me know which platform in the comments down below. If you liked this video, then give it a thumbs up. If you disliked it, a thumbs down. As always, keep slaying.